Hello there, my name is Carole. Welcome to my sewing room. Back on the 26th of May, I held up this wheel because I had 5 pieces of blue fabric that I really didn't know what to do with. I now don't have 5 pieces of fabric I don't know what to do with. They are 5 wonderful garments. This is the final in this series, the 5th series of hashtag Fabric Wheel of Fate. This was the wheel. I have conquered the wheel. Again, it's been a brilliant series. When I start this, I start off with these pieces of fabric and I honestly have no plans, no clue what I'm going to make with any of them. Hence, they've been sat in my stash for a long, long time. And then by the end of the series, I then have all my garments and I'm absolutely thrilled. Of course, what I haven't shown you is the final garment. So I'm going to chat about what I sewed with that blue striped seersucker. Now, obviously there was one fabric left on that wheel, wasn't there? So we all knew what it was going to be. But what I did was put some topics on the wheel this time round, whether it be pajamas, shell top, shorts, can't remember what the other one was. And I spun it and it landed on shell top, which is behind me. I am really pleased with it, but what was my intentions and what did I sew? I have sewn this pattern many times before, New Look 6483, but I thought that's almost a bit boring to use a pattern I've used many times before, and I did have another shell pattern. So when I say shell top, it's basically a top with no sort of fastenings. It just slips over in a woven fabric normally. So I had Butterick 6175 and I've always fancied having a go at this one. Now I think I'm going to have to show you the drawings there because it's got like a scallopy hem. I wasn't convinced it would look right, but I thought I'd have a go. Now this is cut to a size 10 and I know it's getting tight on me. The last version I made actually is quite tight. So I started afresh and I actually sewed a 12. But I did something I never do unless it's a really special occasion garment. I made a trial top and I'm really, really glad I did. So I made it up in a 12 in just a piece of sheet very quickly to see how it would go. The fitting was amazing, but then I did that scalloped bit on the bottom. So the scalloped bit meant you did the normal hem. If I show you the back of it, you can see a normal hem. Then this was a facing, so you cut some more pieces out, and this was the facing, but you stitched on the stitching lines. Now, admittedly, I didn't do it as precise as I would have done on a real garment, but I only did the front, and I did that. Now, to get that shape, it's actually quite hard to copy those stitching lines. So I created, with the help of Amazon cardboard, the exact kind of scallop shaped. And then I had the line there. So this was the shape, and then thought I could draw it round on the actual garment. So I did all that and I sewed it up and I put it on, and I have to say I didn't like it. And as I said, admittedly I didn't do it to precise. But what I learnt, this is the garment, my lovely top. That's just the front. What I learnt was, unless you are super, super precise and then you turn it inside out, so that's the facing, it's, I think, got to be done in a pattern fabric, not a plain fabric, because you can see every wobble. It just doesn't look great, does it? And I had kind of a clown vibe about it, but I don't know why. On the pattern with that top, it looks pretty. You could have interfaced it to make it stiffer and everything like that, but this fabric, I'm saying it's a seersucker, but I'm not entirely sure. It acts more like a double gauze. It is very bouncy. It's not particularly, well, it is kind of stretchy a little bit, isn't it? But it's soft and bouncy. And what it wouldn't have held is that lovely sort of semicircular shape. So at that point, the fact I wasn't 100% convinced, I didn't know if curves and stripes would work together, I decided just to make the plain shell top with a straight hem on the bottom, and I'm glad I did. So I still use this pattern, but I just didn't bother with doing the scoops. So it's probably that version there, version A. So obviously I will show you me wearing that. It goes super with a pair of white trousers. Did have facings, and I talked a lot about facings when I made the dress, the 8640 the week before, but I did put the facings in because it's a very light fabric. It actually looks awful on there because of the dark mannequin, so I'm going to take it off. That looks better. So it has these facings inside, and I haven't top stitched on the good side, on the right side. I decided to hand stitch it very lightly, the facing all the way around, to keep it down. It is a lovely top. I was really surprised in the fact that just by making a size 12, size bigger, the bust darts were still in exactly the right place. It's got very little drape, this fabric, but it's super comfy. I think that's the main thing with it. It was meant to have a back opening. I found that because I've got narrow shoulders and a sort of sway back, it was sticking out a bit, so I got rid of the back opening and I brought it in a little bit, as you can see where the stripes are kind of going into the centre. That doesn't matter, you need to get yourself some long hair because it covers everything. So obviously I will show that to you, but that was a shell top which was very much inspired by the lovely Jen from Today in Jen's Sewing Room, who recently made exactly the same thing. So I hope she approves of this. But then I had some fabric left over. So what did I do with that? So many people suggested making pajamas, and that actually was an option on the wheel, to make pajamas, but it didn't land on that. But I thought I would have a go. So I did make some pajamas as well. Now, all the way along with this fabric, I talked about the fact that my son, who's now 34, had a teddy bear with pajamas in more or less exactly the same fabric, and that's why I was always worried about sewing that garment for myself. But I thought, wouldn't it be fun not to make a new pair of trousers for the bear, pajamas for the bear, because I have no idea what size he is because he lives the other side of the country to me. But over a year ago now, I made this doll. I think I made this doll here for my granddaughter. I thought, wouldn't it be awesome if she had a pair of pajamas the same as my son's bear, which lives with them over there. So I made these pajamas. Now, I was really, really pleased with myself. There is no pajama pattern here at all. There's a t-shirt pattern there and a coat pattern. So I thought, how am I going to make it look like the pajamas? So I did the t-shirt back to front. So I just raised the back, raised the front piece, lowered the back piece, sort of thing, and made it back to front. But then I had to try and make a collar. So this was the bit I was really pleased with myself. So I cut out, it's got these facings here. Facings again, and believe you me, these facings are tiny to work with, let alone trying to work with that shell top. So I had these facings, and I thought that's brilliant, because what I will do is double over a piece of the fabric, make it cut it on the angle, double it over, and insert it between the facing and the piece. I mean, this is complicated stuff, isn't it? And that worked an absolute treat, because it does look like a proper collar. So she will have Velcro fastenings down the front, and obviously I can't put buttons on, she's only 2. I did a little round circle of felt, and then just did a little cross in a sort of different colour to make it look like buttons. And that ended up looking quite like a pyjama top. Trousers, super easy, 2 pieces, bit of elastic at the top. So I will be sending that off to my granddaughter. So now she will have something to match the bear, which I think is quite sweet. So you can tell I had way more fun making that than the shell top, can't you? Sorry, that's Simplicity 9770. I made the doll and a couple of the clothes. I really like that. I'd love to have another go at making another doll at some time in the future. But that is what I made with that blue seersucker. So let's run through all the other garments I made. By the way, if you're interested, this is a very old New Look 6650 magic dress that I have. It's got the tie in the front. Love this dress. I've worn it so many times, but it was blue, so I thought I should keep with a blue theme. So let's run through all the other garments I did make. So first up was this viscose jersey and blue and white. In fact, they're all blue. I don't know, I'm going to say that. It was Burda 6330. I had made this before with this tie. This was an offcut from a dress that I made my daughter, so I didn't have a massive amount, but I did have enough to piece together. Obviously, I will try and put in some video, if I can find them, of me modelling. But I really, really loved that. As I said, it was that view there with the tie. Never made the tunic, but that really worked and I was really pleased. So I was off to a good start. The second one, I took a real gamble. This was Simplicity 8878. Never made it before, but I had very little fabric, so there wasn't much I could do. So I ended up making that top with this weird kind of tie design. It was this beautiful viscose chalet and it's just such a stunning colour. I did a lovely deep hem on this, as in the pattern, and I'm really liking the deep hems at the moment. Just the grown on sort of very small sleeve, but this tie design here. I absolutely loved the colours of this. I think that really worked. So again, took a risk, but I was pleased. Simplicity 8878. Next up, and I think if you were to ask me, I would say this was my favourite out of all of them. New Look 6575. I turned this top into more of a kind of a beachwear over the swimsuit kind of top. It was out of an ombre fabric. It was crepe de chine or something like that, very slippy, but I used the ombre, the lighter bit, to create just these front plackets as well. Got a couple of ties. That's a sort of security to hide a bit, and that one there, elasticated waist. So it's going to be my beach cover up, but I think because of the nature of this fabric and how hard it is to work with, I think this is probably going to be my favourite. Then the one before last I sewed up was a good old 8640 Simplicity dress, very popular amongst Jen and Trish from Pinky's Farm and myself. We have all got versions of this dress. It was out of this, which I thought would be very see-through, really super light viscose chalet, but actually it's not too bad at all, especially when you put a full slip underneath it. I absolutely love it. It's got the V top stitching details, which is hard to see, I will admit. I didn't do the facings on this. Yeah, what did I do with that shell top? I went ahead and did the facings. So super lightweight dress, really, really pleased with it. So that was Simplicity 8640, as if we didn't know. There we go. That was this end of this series of Fabric Wheel. Now, I loved doing these videos. I always do. I will put the wheel away for a while. Now, whether I will do another series, who knows? I'll have a good look through my stash in a couple of months and see what I think. I've done different versions before. A lot of people say to me, why don't you do patterns on the wheel or mix it up? But for me, what works the best is, and I've done it different ways, is when I put fabric on, because that way it's almost a surprise for you what I'm going to make, and it's always a surprise for me what I'm going to make, rather than being too predictable. I don't like planning things, so just have it land on fabric and it says sew that. It makes it great. Now, of course, there are loads of people doing this now. There's about 13 channels that I know of doing a version of this. I will link all of them down below. So even though my series is coming to an end, there are lots of others out there that you can keep watching. And never forget, you can always do this yourself. It's a way of sewing up your sash, but making it a bit more fun. Whether you use a wheel or dice or computer to choose what fabric you need to work out, it's brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed this series. As I said, it really did work out well again. The wheel makes me up my game, and I think that's the bit that I love doing. It makes me think outside the box for so many different projects. So thank you so much for joining me, and don't forget to join me on #Friday. Don't forget to join me on the #Friday Sews, or whenever else a video from myself might pop up. You're always welcome in my sewing room. Thank you again, and happy sewing.